Um, so I will start this presentation first of all by presenting myself, and then we will go through the different functionalities of Springdoc OpenAPI. So first of all, I'm a software architect. I work at BNP Paribas. And before BNP, I have been working in consulting for more than 10 years in different industries. And in the last 5 years, I became more interested on the Open API world and how it can transform every business and also improve the quality of the software. And uh, in today's presentation, I will go through four main topics. The first one, I will introduce the OpenAPI and why we need Springdoc OpenAPI. On the second one, we will see more in details the different modules of Springdoc OpenAPI. And after that, we will have some demo of the library. Next, we will have a look at some of the other supported languages than Java. And at the end, we will see some advanced features of the library. So let's start and have a look on uh, what is OpenAPI. So OpenAPI specification, formerly called Swagger, is a format to describe the different REST APIs. Uh, Traditionally, when we call OpenAPI, we want to talk more about the specification, and the Swagger is the tooling around OpenAPI. And an OpenAPI file or an OpenAPI specification will allow you to describe the different endpoints of the API, the operation parameters, for example, the input and the output of each operation, the different authentication methods, and also the different information about the API, for example, the license, the terms of use, and a lot of other informations that are relevant around the API. The API specification can be written in different formats, in YAML and JSON, and we can expose it in HTML format using Swagger UI. So it's something that we need in terms of project software delivery, uh, depending on how we are organized. For example, if we are in an approach of design first, we will first of all produce the API contract and then start coding, and we will need to produce this contract and have a lot of exchange with the business about the API before starting coding. And there is another approach where we will code first, and then we will produce the contract for the consumers. And on the two methodologies, we need this contract to communicate with the business and with the different API consumers. And in this context, why we need a Springdoc OpenAPI? Many industry standards are using OpenAPI format. For instance, Open Banking, PSD2, and also a lot of standards on healthcare or on transports. All API management solutions are supporting OpenAPI 3 format, and vendors also prefer this format to benefit from a lot of interesting functionalities around their solutions. And the problem that we faced, for example, in many projects at my firm is that the existing open source libraries that supported both Swagger and Spring Boot, they has not evolved with the new standard OpenAPI 3, which has been released since July 2017. And we had to work on a library that will help us to automate the generation of API documentation in the different Spring Boot projects. So this library, first of all, supported mainly Spring MVC, and it supported Spring Boot V1 and V2. And it also supports GSR 303 for validation. It's built on top of Swagger UI, and it supports OAuth protocol that we will see more in details in one of the different features of the library. And for we have also some existing projects that are using Swagger or OpenAPI 2, and they want to migrate to OpenAPI 3. For these projects, what I can tell them is that there has been a lot of breaking changes during the specification of OpenAPI 3, and we can see it on the schema that we have a lot of breaking changes, for example, around the paths, produces and consumes, and which makes the migration not quite easy for many projects. And the objective of the library is also to make this migration quite easy by providing a guidance for the project that has been already using Swagger 2 and to use quickly and simply OpenAPI 3. So now let's have a look on the different Springdoc OpenAPI modules and see more in details the different features. So first of all, we can see on this software architecture of the library that it's built on top of Swagger models, Swagger annotations, and Swagger integration, and also on top of Spring Web. So we have a common module that integrates Swagger and Spring Web, and then what we have is that two different modules, one for Spring MVC, which is called Springdoc OpenaPI Web MVC core, and the other one, it's for reactive applications, so Springdoc OpenaPI WebFlux core. So any project that just ships one of these two dependencies will expose REST endpoints that will describe the OpenAPI description of the different available endpoints in the application. And if the project wants to get also access to not only the JSON and the YAML description, but to the Swagger UI, the project can ship Springdoc OpenAPI UI. And if the project is using spring-webflux, the project should pick Springdoc OpenAPI WebFlux UI, which will display the Swagger UI and the different available endpoints on the application. As you can see here, we have the description of the API, the version, and different endpoints that will be scanned by Springdoc OpenAPI. So, as I said on the beginning, one of the first features that has been integrated is the support of Spring MVC. So it's something that was, I would say, that helped us to have the base module of Springdoc, and the role of this dependency is to support the main parameters or the main types of Spring MVC, for instance, request param, path variable, or request body, or other types. And also, what we want is that on the documentation, we want to hide some parameters that are used natively by Spring MVC, for example, HTTP servlet, HTTP servlet request, HTTP servlet response, or also model and other Spring MVC types. And what the project needs to do in order to enable the support of OpenAPI is only to add the Springdoc OpenAPI UI dependency in order to have access to different available endpoints. So let's move to the demo and have a look at more in details on how we can integrate Springdoc OpenAPI in a simple Spring MVC project. So here, I have already prepared. This example. It's a simple service that contains a person entity. So first of all, we can have a look at the different dependencies. So in this simple example, we have Spring Boot Starter Web that is used, and the only thing that we did is that we added Springdoc OpenAPI UI in order to display Swagger UI. Then here we have our entity. For example, here we have an entity person with different attributes, first name, last name, email, age, worth. And we have our REST controller, which is which will help us to consult the different details of the person and also to create the person. So we have a post mapping and a get mapping on the resource person. And as you can see, we have here just mocked data for the demo. And we have an exception handler. So we have a global exception handler, and we have the different HTTP codes that are related to the different errors, and the response entity, which is of type error message. So these are this is the classic structure of a simple project, and on the configuration side, we just added a configuration class. All this is optional. All this is not needed by default. But in our case, what we wanted is to display on the Swagger UI the description of the API, for example, and also all the relevant information about the API, the title, the version, and any license information. Also, additionally, we added, for example, here the support of monetary amount module in order to display it in the Swagger UI and to serialize the monetary amount automatically without any extra code. This is also a functionality that is provided by Springdoc, and we can see that we just replace the monetary amount by the type that is provided by Springdoc. So this is the only configuration, and by default, we haven't yet added any Swagger annotations for documentation. And what we can do is to test the access to this application, first of all. So here we have the different informations that were, okay. So here we have the different informations about the API, the sample application API. We have the different controllers, person with the get and post method. We can test the API. For example, I will write my name, and then I have the response. And what we have also is that the different other HTTP responses that has been scanned and displayed from the controller advice. And this is one demo of the basic functionalities of Springdoc OpenAPI. And what we can do is to move and see more advanced features of springdoc-openapi. So Springdoc also supports webflux. Webflux is the reactive implementation of Spring, and um, the the, the integration with webflux when you use annotated controllers is quite similar to the integration with Spring Web MVC. The only thing that needs to be done is to add the Springdoc OpenAPI webflux UI dependency. And this dependency will enable a native support of mono and flux types and the other types that are provided by webflux. We have also the native support of Spring HATEOAS. So projects that uses, for example, Spring HATEOAS or wants to use some Spring data common types, for example, Pageable, the only thing that they need to do is to add Springdoc OpenAPI data REST dependency with the Swagger UI, with the Springdoc OpenAPI UI dependency in order to improve the support of Spring HATEOAS. And the same principle applies to Spring Security. So for Spring Security, you should add the following dependency with the Springdoc OpenAPI UI. And this dependency will enable a better support of Spring Security types, for example, authentication principal or authentication, and these types will be ignored by default by Springdoc. Also, if you want to enable the OAuth 2 support, it's natively integrated with Springdoc, and the only thing that needs to be done is to choose the right Springdoc OpenAPI UI dependency if you are using Spring MVC or webflux, and there is no need of extra dependency to enable the OAuth 2 support. And what we can do is have a look on a quick demo of how we can integrate with the Spring Security and OAuth. Okay. So here, in this example, what we have is two main modules, one for an authorization server, and we can just see the dependencies, and we can see that it's based on Kicklock, which is an open source implementation of OAuth. And this server is used in embedded mode and is launched, and we have a resource server, and this is the most interesting part. So the resource server is using Spring Boot Starter Web, DevTools. It's using a OAuth client. It's declared as resource server, and also to enable the Spring Security support, we have added Springdoc OpenAPI UI and Springdoc OpenAPI Security. Why these two? So let's have a look on this resource server at the different APIs that are available. So here we have a full controller with the different endpoints, for example, a get mapping and a post mapping, and we can see that we have a security requirement to enable the OAuth 2 support. For the Swagger UI, you can see that the dependency here comes from Swagger annotations. And on the same configuration, we have here Swagger configuration. So we have this annotation, but this time on the method level that describes the name of the security requirement. This security requirement is defined on the OpenAPI configuration. So here we have a simple class that declares the OpenAPI configuration with the security schemes and the different OAuth flows that are available on this application and different related scopes. And also we have the security configuration. And on this configuration, the most interesting part for Swagger is that we have excluded all the controls of Spring security on the endpoint of API docs and on the Swagger UI in order to be able to test the API from the Swagger UI. So now let's test this example. Okay, let me just get the URL of the example. So here in this example, the resource server is started on port 8081. And as you can see here, we have a full controller, and we have also the user info controller. And if I try, I get an error 401 because I'm not already authenticated. What I can do is that I will click on the authorize button, and here you can see that the client ID and the client secret has been already filled by springdoc-openapi. And then I will click on the authorize button and fill the login and the password. And now that I'm authenticated, I can try again. And here we can see that on the header, we have the authorization period header where we pass the access token, and I have an HTTP 200 for the response, and I get my response, my expected response. So this is a quick demo of the available functionalities of Springdoc integration with Spring Security. So now let's move and see more functionalities of Springdoc. So Springdoc also supports Kotlin. So for projects that uses Kotlin, they need to add Springdoc-openapi Kotlin module. It was one of the first modules after Springdoc Web MVC support. It was one of the first modules that has been added because there was a lot of demand from the community to support Kotlin. And this module improves the compatibility with some Kotlin types, for example, Kotlin coroutines, flow, and other types that are related to Kotlin. And what a project needs to do, depending on the technology that the project is using, is to ship the Springdoc-openapi Kotlin dependency if the project is in blocking mode or using Spring MVC. It should use Springdoc-openapi Kotlin with the Springdoc OpenAPI UI dependency, and if it's in reactive mode, it should combine Springdoc OpenAPI webflux UI dependency with the Springdoc OpenAPI Kotlin dependency. So this is also one of the interesting features that are available on Springdoc, and on the same principle, there is also an integrated support with Groovy, and the only thing that needs to be done is to add the Springdoc OpenAPI Groovy dependency. Here we can have a look on some advanced features of Springdoc OpenAPI. We have Springdoc OpenAPI Customizer. And on this example, we have, for example, an OpenAPI, an operation customizer. What we want sometimes is that after the generation to change the generated OpenAPI. So here, for example, based on an annotation that is on the method level, we get all the methods that contains this annotation of customized operation, and you want to change the description of the generated OpenAPI. So this is a way of customizing the OpenAPI description. And on the same principle, we have a parameter customizer and also a property customizer to customize the schema property based on the annotated type. Another interesting feature is the group support. The groups features enables an application to expose multiple OpenAPI definitions. The API definition can be split based on the combination, for example, of paths, packages to scan, or other custom criteria. And this functionality is achieved using group definition properties, or can be also achieved programmatically using a grouped OpenAPI bin. As you can see, for example, we want to get all the paths that contains, for example, v1 stream and that are on the package test.org.springdoc.api.app66. And this is a quick example how we can get a group of APIs that belongs, for example, to a path or to a package. And at the final result, on the same Swagger UI, we can display many API definitions. Another interesting feature is the generation in offline mode. So if you need to generate JSON or YAML OpenAPI description without deploying your application or using your CI/CD toolchain, you can use either Springdoc OpenAPI Maven plugin if you are using Maven, or Springdoc OpenAPI Gradle plugin. And it's also possible to customize different properties, for example, API docs, URL, the output directory, or the output file name. The only thing that needs to be done is to add on to the project the Springdoc OpenAPI Maven plugin or the Springdoc OpenAPI Gradle plugin to enable this support in offline mode. And what in this example, what we can see is the integration of Spring Cloud Gateway with Springdoc OpenAPI. So now we will have a look at this quick demo where we will have three microservices: employee service, department service, and organization service that will be exposing each one their own documentation in JSON format. And what we want is a single entry point on the gateway service where we want to have access to the different API definitions. And we will integrate with Spring Cloud Config and Spring Cloud Eureka. So here we have a config service. So we have a config server. We have also a discovery service that is based on Eureka. And the most interesting part, for example, we can see the department service, and the same principle applies to the other services, is that we have added only Springdoc OpenAPI Web MVC core because we don't want the UI to be displayed on these services. And here we can see, for example, the code of a department service where we just have a simple REST controller that is exposing some endpoints related to the department service. And the same principle applies to employee services and to organization service. And the integration with Spring Cloud Gateway is done using Springdoc OpenAPI WebFlux UI. Why WebFlux UI? Because Spring Cloud Gateway is based on WebFlux. And here we have Spring Cloud Gateway definition, and the only thing to enable the support or the integration of Springdoc OpenAPI with Spring Cloud Gateway and Eureka is that we defined a list of grouped API beans, and here we create a group OpenAPI bean based on the service name. And the idea here is that to display all the services on the gateway service. So if I come and try to access, for example, to the Swagger UI of the Spring Cloud Gateway that is already deployed, we have here the department API, the employee API, and the organization API. And I think, not sure here. So on the browser, I have the department API and employee API and organization API. And with this, we reach the end of the presentation. So at the end, I hope that I have made it clear about the role of Springdoc OpenAPI, and all the demos are available on GitHub. You have here also some useful links. If you need more information about the library, please feel to contact me through GitHub or through the social media. Thank you very much for your attention. And now let's switch to some questions.
All right. So thank you very much, Badr, for your presentation. We have some discussion on the Discord channel with some questions, so maybe we can go over them.
Yeah.
So first question is it possible to integrate a springdoc-openapi with a Spring Cloud contract?
It hasn't yet been tested, but it can be part of new functionalities.
Okay. So we have some other question about Spring Cloud Gateway, which you have already answered in your presentation. And then what does OpenAPI version 3 offers that version 2 doesn't?
It's more enhanced support of respect of standards. For example, on OpenAPI 3, there is not, we do not accept body, for example, for delete methods. So there is some more enhancements on the respect of standards that has been added, and also the structure of the OpenAPI that is more more reliable to the respect of standards. For example, the consumes types and that has been the media types of the headers that has been moved into the consumes and into the response types, which didn't exist on the OpenAPI or on the Swagger 2 or the OpenAPI 2 version. So there is some improvements on the respect of standards. That's why it's more interesting to move to OpenAPI 3, and also all the security parts to the respect of OAuth flows, the different OAuth flows that are better respected using OpenAPI 3.
That's lovely. And I guess we have still time for some, well, for another question at least. Is there a way to document routes defined by functional definitions?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's I would say it's a new feature also that has been added lately with Springdoc OpenAPI. So you can go to the springdoc.org, and there is a tutorial how you can integrate.
So I think that we're not sharing the screen, Badr. But well, you're pointing to the spring.org. That's basically
where there is the description how we can integrate different routes. So there is two main annotations: router operation and router operation that will help you to display the OpenAPI description of routes.
Okay. That's great. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. If you have some more time, I invite you to join us in the Discord discussion, right? So that we have some more questions in there.
Thank you very much, Sergey. Thank you,
great.
guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So we'll go for a break now, and we'll be back in 10 minutes.